Welcome back. All right, so halfway through the season, I think it's a good time for me to get into a topic of conversation I like to talk about because I watch as many games as possible when I'm here, and I like to watch as much hockey as I can for, power rankings reasons and just to know, who's going and who's not. So there are 10 teams that I've picked out as the ones that I'm enjoying watching most this year. I'm wearing Avs because they get honorable mention. Honorable mention for the Colorado Avalanche. Maybe it's just the fact that they've been good for as long as they have. There aren't really a lot of surprises there. But yeah, so I've got the reasons here for these 10 teams, and you can guess at which 10 before they go in. I'm starting with number one. Yep. We're going from 1 through 10 on this one. The Vancouver Canucks. Now, today it's after the first period between them and Buffalo. Not a really exciting first period. You got to be honest, but what a road trip, and they're fun to watch. And what gets me with the Canucks is they're composed with the lead. The number one complaint Canucks fans have had, and there's a lot of Canuck fan complaints, number one complaint would be they can't protect a lead. They don't play the full 60 minutes. This year, that really hasn't been a concern for the Vancouver Canucks or their fans. So they are the team I'm most enjoying watching this year. Number two, back from the dead, has to be the Oilers, doesn't it? They were 2-9-1 to start the season. That's it. They're done. They're not going to make it. Now, I thought, yeah, so they're not going to make the playoffs. That's bizarre because they were supposed to be a playoff team and a favorite for the Stanley Cup. Since the coaching change, they have been so much fun to watch. And again, I know last year when I did a top 10, I didn't have the Oilers in it, and there were some Oiler fans that were mad. I think I'm actually enjoying it more this year to watch them than last year. And I think it's because they got off to that really rough start, and it looked like, well, they're not going to be able to recover from this, and they have. Number three, always fun to watch, win or lose, the New York Rangers. A lot of winning early in the season, not a lot of winning recently, and so they've started sliding down the power rankings board. I'm just having a peek at around this. But, yeah, I'm going to bring that board onto the makeshift set. Why not? So, yeah, the Rangers are always fun to watch. I know for Ranger fans it may not be fun, but for me, again, not cheering for or against the Rangers, they're an enjoyable team to track. And when there are as many games and as many teams and all that in the NHL as there are, I'm glad that there's some teams that are very enjoyable to watch. Number four, defying expectations. Who would that be? It's got to be Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Jets. Early in the season, the talk was, well, there's nobody in attendance, and this team seemed to be mediocre. People wanted, management fired, Shovel Day off, clearly doesn't know what he's doing, all this other stuff. And they've really turned that around after that iffy start to the season. And again, it was just 4 games in that they had an iffy record. Then they start turning it around. But yeah, they've been a ton of fun to watch. There's so much depth there. There's so many good players in Winnipeg. Really, ton of fun to watch them. Number 5, this year's Sabres. So again, I would expect people to look at this when it loads up and go, wonder which team he's got for each of those headlines. The New Jersey Devils, I feel like, are this year's Sabres. Can they score? Yep. Do they have trouble with defense at times and goaltending? Yep. It's like last year's Sabres. Always a very entertaining watch, as frustrating as it might be. So for Devils fans who, might have stress disorders watching them this year, at least I found it very entertaining. But again, keep in mind that was my Stanley Cup pick for this year. That Stanley Cup pick right now, not looking quite as comfortable as it may have, say, ever. I don't know if that was a comfortable pick or not. I felt like everybody was picking the same teams. I thought, why not New Jersey? Good young team. But they're making mistakes of a good young team, but they're always fun to watch. Number 6, not exciting but efficient. People will bet on LA for that one, is my guess. But I'm going with Philly. This is a team that was supposed to be in the midst of a rebuild. They weren't supposed to be very good. And yet, while the games are not always exciting, it is impressive to see the way that Tortorella has formed an identity with this team. And he is stuck with it. I think that the Philadelphia Flyers are on the right track. I understand the frustration over the Gauthier trade and all this, but Drysdale, as I mentioned in the video earlier today, I'm looking forward to watching him in the second half of the season. And the Flyers, can they hold on to a playoff spot? I think they can. I don't know if they necessarily will because the East is so competitive. So, 7th on the list, let's see. Up-tempo, surprisingly fun to watch. Arizona. Now, I had Arizona in the top 10 last year. There were those who were not happy that I had Arizona in the top 10 last year. And this is about the team on the ice too. This isn't the broadcast crew, so this is why if you're a Red Wings fan going, I thought he loved watching Red Wings games. That's the broadcast crew. Best broadcast crew in the NHL is the Red Wings broadcast from Valley. But in terms of watching the team on the ice, Arizona early in the season it was Carcone show. Now you've got Ingram, Krause has started to really pick it up goal scoring wise. Keller's a lot of fun, Schmaltz, and this is a team without Barrett Hayden. So I do enjoy watching Arizona Coyotes games. They're a fun team. As a Bruins fan, I was frustrated with that game the other night against Arizona, but they got the 2 points. They did what they had to do, and the Coyotes keeping themselves in the mix for a playoff spot. Even if they fall short, this season will be seen as a success. Number 8, very up and down, unpredictable. Who would that be? Toronto. Toronto Maple Leafs, very unpredictable from one night to the next, but always enjoyable to watch. And it is interesting how many of the teams on this board have had goaltending issues at some point this year. There's been question marks. Maybe that's part of what makes it more fun, although Carolina did not make the top 10. So, again, I have to limit it to 10 because if I go to like 16 or 20, then it becomes more of a headache. I have to kind of say, no, I'm going to limit it to these 10. But Toronto, watching Matthews as he's gotten back to his form, and what a form that is. He could score 70 goals. And the thing is that Matthews, it feels like he isn't necessarily playing his A game at this point. Like it just feels like sometimes he's on autopilot with these kinds of things. Sorry, just some background noise I had to take care of. Anyways, Toronto and not a pet. I did not take care of a pet. But anyways, there's a lot of animals in here. All 5 cats and 2 rabbits. So that's a record. This is Pixel's room. She sees me as an interloper. I get dirty looks from her a lot. So, yeah, very up and down and unpredictable Toronto Maple Leafs this year, which again is a lot of fun for somebody who doesn't have an emotional attachment to said games. Might be more frustrating for me if I was a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But, yeah, they're a lot of fun. Number 9, can be great, can be not great. And I think that encapsulates Dallas. From one game to the next, they can look fantastic one night, and then the next game, there's some holes there. Now they're right now fighting through not having Heiskanen in the lineup, but they've got Ottinger back now. Dallas playoff team, yes. What are they going to do in the playoffs? Beats me. I really have no idea. Even though that was my pick for Stanley Cup finalists this year, but is it always entertaining? Yeah. Even when I'm swearing under my breath because something stupid happened in a Dallas game, I cannot deny they're not boring. There's no boring there. Which brings us to number 10. Competitive, every game, strong work ethic, Boston Bruins. So, Boston fans, I know there are those in Boston fandom, not a huge fan of how I necessarily cover the team. But the Boston Bruins, I think, have succeeded despite not necessarily having a great lineup up front. You look down the middle, you look at their center spot, it is amazing that they're first in the division. Compare their centers, 1 through 4, with the centers of Florida, Toronto, Tampa Bay, I'd say almost anybody in the division, really. And it is remarkable, the strong record Boston's had through the first half of the season. And they are fun to watch. Even though, as I've said before, when they win games, sometimes it feels like they're playing in slush. They're playing games in porridge. But Boston's got that fight, and you know that in the playoffs, that just makes them very wildly unpredictable. This year's playoffs, I think, are going to be great. I'm looking forward to covering those in the spring. It's going to be warmer in the spring, right? Should be warmer in the spring. Only minus 10 outside right now. It's balmy compared to yesterday at minus 16. Anyways, there you go. 10 teams that I'm enjoying watching most this year in the National Hockey League. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you watch hockey and you watch various teams, which team have you enjoyed? So the challenge to me would be, which team have you been watching this year that maybe you don't cheer for and you're like, you know what? These guys are fun to watch. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.